You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. You can't learn to fly just from a book. You learn from other pilots who know the tools, the skills, and the territory. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, episode number 76, Aviation Marketing for FBOs. I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help you guys out there sell more aviation products and services.
Right, and our mission today is to help FBOs sell more of their products and services. So hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll have some great ideas for getting more people in the door and getting them to part with more of their money before they leave, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. So if you have any questions about today's episode or any other episode or anything else for that matter having to do with aviation marketing, you can use the hashtag #AvGeekMarketing, and that way we will find your comments and other things and reply to every tweet. Of course, you're welcome also to reply or submit comments or anything else on social media or our blog, right?
Yes.
All right.
Of course.
Okay. So the big ideas today, we're going to break this down the way we always do. And that is talk about things in 3 phases, because it's always easier to take things step by step than it is to look at the big picture. Of course, the big picture is basically for FBOs to get more business. But we're going to break that down into 3 phases. Phase 1, advertising and prospecting. Phase 2, building credibility and closing sales, and phase 3, resales, recaptures, and referrals. And the money is always made in the aviation industry.
In phase 3.
In phase 3. Exactly. It's a very trust-oriented and very, I'm going to say, habit-driven or routine-driven industry. So, once you get people coming in the door, they tend to be really loyal, which is a wonderful thing. So, carrying on. Something wrong?
Nope.
Okay.
It's,
we have strange things going on in the office here, but we'll carry on. Okay. So phase 1, advertising and prospecting. Of course, this is where most marketing companies spend most of their time and want you to spend most of your money. But for aviation companies and FBOs in particular, I think our general advice holds true here, and that is not to spend more than 50% of your marketing budget on advertising and prospecting. Would you agree?
Yep.
Okay. And then you'll want to split the other 50% between phase 2 and phase 3. So, of course, phase 1 is getting people to be aware of you for the first time. But for FBOs, we've got a really limited pool of people that we need to advertise to, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Yes, this is the way it is in aviation.
Right. So you can spend less money doing your advertising and prospecting, but you really want to make sure that once people know about you, that you really impress their socks off, and also that you keep them coming back and get them to bring their friends and neighbors and colleagues and everybody else. So that's kind of the general theory, and now let's get into the details of what we mean by all that and how you do it, right?
So let's go for it.
Okay. So phase 1, you want to think about your customer avatars, and we talked about this in a lot of our book club discussions. Just about everybody who writes a marketing book these days uses the term customer profile or customer avatar or something of that sort, where you want to really nail down who your customer is and what their problems are. And for an FBO, you've got a bunch of different customer avatars depending on the type of FBO and the area that you're in and other kinds of things. But the first one is kind of the typical one, or the simplest one, is owner-operators, people who own their own airplanes and fly wherever they are going for business or pleasure and need to park and need gas and need rental cars and need other services and possibly, lab service, catering, any of the other things that you might provide. Second would be charter pilots. Those would be folks that work for some of the big charter organizations or small charter organizations. These are folks that fly professionally a lot. They are not necessarily the passengers, so they're not necessarily making all of the decisions, but they usually have some influence over. They may not decide which airport to fly into, but they may decide which FBO to visit once that decision's made about the destination, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Another one is corporate fleet pilots. A lot of these folks have relationships with fuel companies, so the decision may already be partly made for them in terms of where they're going to land and who they're going to get fuel from anyway. But there is some room for influence there. And of course, even if you can't influence the individual pilots, you can always go after the corporate fleet and see if you can influence their decision.
Of course, and particularly if you've got FBOs across the nation.
Right, exactly. So this might be a business-to-consumer sale where you're influencing the decision of the individual pilot, or this might be a situation where you would need to go to the corporate fleet and make your case, that your FBO can provide better service than what they're doing now. So that might be a slightly different variable there, but for the purpose of today's discussion, we're assuming that you're influencing the end user.
Or users.
Users, the people in the cockpits, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so let's talk first about owner-operators. What do we know about them?
Well, that's an interesting question, because owner-operators could be guys flying 550s, although there are very few of them that own it and operate it all at the same time, although I can think of a handful. Mm-hmm. So you must be talking, therefore, for owner-operators, the guys that are flying the high-end recips and turboprops and things like that fly themselves around for business and pleasure.
Right, or even, the dentist that flies the Bonanza, would be one end of that spectrum, and the rock star that has their own pilots and their whole flight crew would be another end of that spectrum, right?
Well, no, because I suppose maybe.
They're owning their airplane and they're staffing it themselves. So.
Yeah, and they're operating it, I guess, under very loosely.
Yeah, depending on how you define that, but... in any case, these are people who have the money to have an airplane. So, obviously they're probably 1%ers. And, there are a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about high net worth and ultra high net worth people. And your FBO staff, a lot of times the folks that work with you, the line guys and everybody else, the people at the desk and so on, there's a pretty big income disparity between the folks who are working for you and the folks that they are providing service for. And sometimes that can create some awkwardness. So, what we'd like you to consider is having them do some things, we suggested in the last couple of books, read the Rob Report, subscribe to Lori White's luxury blog, some other kinds of things like that, so that they understand, these are just people. You'll have the occasional Paris Hilton or, celebrity or whatever you want to call them, but the vast majority of high net worth and ultra high net worth people are not necessarily celebrities. They're not necessarily anything that you would think of, and they're certainly not the stereotype of what people
No, they're
assume.
not.
The ones that we've seen are, very, very nice people. People's grandma, grandpa, cousin, uncle. They're just folks.
Right.
One thing that you may find that people that are in this profession, they may be in politics, they may be in other professions, they may be in retail or wholesale or manufacturing, other kinds of industries. They may be in farming or agriculture or oil and gas. Not so much lately, but those are a lot of the industries, and those are not necessarily the diamond-crusted kind of culture, that you're expecting. And a lot of folks are families. There's a lot of families that travel private, especially lately, since the airlines have gotten so restrictive and, are causing such hassles. A lot of families are finding, with the little bit of vacation they have, they want to spend it where they're going and, enjoy their vacation and not spend it in the airport, right?
And come and go when and where they want.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about professional pilots. What do they want?
Actually, it depends, but nice facilities, but a good price on fuel, good price on landing fees, or trade-off thereof.
Exactly. So, thing number one is they have to keep their passengers happy and keep their company happy. And this includes the charter guys and the corporate fleet guys. They have to stay within the guidelines of what they're given. They don't want to get in trouble. So, they want to make sure that the paperwork is done right and, all of the bits and pieces or boxes are checked and things like that. Above and beyond that, I think they're looking for a crew car, a way to get to their hotel fast because they're tired, making sure that their customers are well taken care of so that they have a good experience and so on.
Airplane's taken care of so it doesn't get any hanger rash.
Absolutely.
And refueled on demand.
Right. And to their specifications, so there's no misfueling or anything else that's going to make people sweat and do a lot more paperwork. Okay, so one really great example of this, Wilma's Sea Cottage, Air Galore has a company that has a fabulous FBO in Mendocino, California. Nice little airport, very beautiful setting, so a lot of people that fly in there privately will go off and do their Napa Valley tours and, tourism things and stuff like that. But the pilots get to stay in Wilma's Sea Cottage. A lot of times there will be a way to arrange that. And Mary Fairbanks is really great because she is a professional pilot and a CFI and a lot of other things. But she really understands pilots and what they're looking for and, turns this into a really great experience for the pilots as well as the passengers. So I think that's a really nice touch.
It is.
Not everybody has the opportunity to do that, but certainly there's lodging and restaurants and other things in your area that you can help make it real easy for your pilots, and that's a wonderful thing, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the list. How do you find a great list for an FBO, of prospective customers of the types that we talked about? First one is you need to capture data. So you want to introduce yourself to new passengers and pilots as they come and go, and make sure that there's a way for you to interact with them and they're not just transient traffic, right?
They shouldn't have much problem giving you the information because they're buying fuel and probably paying a ramp fee and who knows what else while you're there. Exactly.
So there's probably lots of ways for you to glom onto that information. The important thing is that you don't just let that go. You want to make sure that you capture everything you can about who they were, what they were flying, who their passengers were, what they wanted, what was important to them, and so on. Another thing that you can do is have a contest, drop a business card at the desk to enter maybe a night at a resort, something like that, or dinner, other kinds of things that these guys would love. And then another thing that you can do is connect on social media. So, connect with pilots, travel coordinators, CFOs for companies that have flight departments. You can use LinkedIn to look for other people at that company that you may be connected to and, build your network toward the decision makers. So in a case where maybe the pilots don't have a lot of control over their decisions as far as where to get fuel and so on, you can move up the tree, look for the CFOs and the travel coordinators and other kinds of people that may have more influence over those kinds of things. This was actually a really good idea that was suggested by AccuQuick on their blog. And that is kind of the I Spy method. You look out the window with your binoculars and you see who's landing at your airport. And you get the tail numbers, and when you have a few minutes, you can look them up in something like the Aviation Files iPhone app, and see who it is and who the plane is registered to, and put them on your prospecting list as well. That's fair game. It's public information, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The more modern way of doing that is to use things like TrackPack or Passer, which are applications that show you who is landing at which airports and so on. Those do require a subscription. So there's the low-tech way of doing it using a free app, or the higher-tech way of doing it using something a little more sophisticated and easier to use, that doesn't require the effort. So up to you. Things that you want to consistently offer. So we talk about a list, an offer, and a presentation. So you want to consistently offer as low a cost of fuel as you can, as far as being competitive with your neighbors, and you know who that is, and you know what your parameters are. If you can have low or no landing fees, that's what people are looking for. Once again, control what you can, and the things that you can't control, you're going to have to find ways to make up for. Mm-hmm. Coffee and cookies, that's usually within your control. Do people really go for that? I mean, would that actually influence a decision?
Maybe not all that by itself, but as a package of everything you're talking about, yes.
It certainly would, right. Nice crew cars. They're looking for something that doesn't smell bad. Just having talked with some of the pilots and looking at some of the things that happen in some of the group discussions and things like that, they like having nice cars that are quickly available and are not awful.
They don't have to be high-end. They can be a Jeep, but as long as it's nice and reliable. Exactly.
Maybe an area guide that has reviews of local restaurants or hotels and other kinds of things that people are going to want. If you are catering to the pilots especially, you might want to include places where they can get catering. Here's where you can pick up, here's where the local liquor store is, here's where the grocery stores are, those kinds of things, because a lot of times they end up doing a lot of the gophering.
Yeah, for the 135 and 91 op, sure.
Yep. Nice pilot lounge. These are kind of in order of importance. So, obviously the low-cost fuel is going to be a big draw. The nice pilot lounge is further down on the list, but still important. And last thing, no nasty surprises. We could almost put that at the top of the list, couldn't we?
Times have changed. I remember flying 135 operations where we landed in a pasture and dropped people off and picked them up again in Texas. I'm serious.
So the FBO was basically...
there was no FBO.
A nice patch of grass.
The two pilots, me being one of them, we'd go to the nearest tree and we'd sit there and wait 2 hours under the shade tree for these guys to get back while we had a thermos full of ice cold water or whatever. I'm serious. I've done a couple times that years ago.
Wow. So things have definitely changed. These pilots are looking for crew cars and lounges.
They were high net worth ranchers in Texas, and they want to go out there, and they have somebody be there either before we get there, right as we land, to pick them up in a brand new truck of some kind, and they go off and they come back in 2 or 3 hours, and we take them back.
Right. Well, it's interesting because a lot of the folks that we talk to with the FBOs, are very concerned that, maybe their facilities are rustic. Yours were much more rustic.
You don't know about rustic till you've done that.
Right. And honestly, I think rustic is not bad. If you've got great service and you've got a way for them to get out of there, they're not going to care if the FBO itself is kind of rustic. As long as they're getting good fuel, they're getting, the service that they need, and they have a way to get to their hotel. They're not going to use your showers. They're going to go to the hotel.
Of course.
And take a nap and a shower and everything else. And so pilot lounge. That's why we put it close to the end of the list, as opposed to the top, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about how you can help people find you. So we talked about the list, the offer. This is the presentation, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So for outbound marketing, there are things that you can do, like Connecting on social media. You take your top 10 list of companies you want to do business with and look them up and connect with them, plug their stuff. If you, one charter company that we know has an author that is a frequent passenger, and they plug his books on their social media. I think it's great. Other kinds of things that you can do to help them promote their businesses in your local area. Just be a good Chamber of Commerce member and a good networker and all of those kinds of things. You can do postcards. We went into some pretty big detail on that in episode 68, talking about how to do great postcards to that list that you just created. So, all of those tail numbers that you wrote down and all of those details that you put together, you may not have an email address, and you may not want to send them an email just to, because they're not all that effective, and you may end up getting into some trouble with the Canned Spam Act. But you will never get in trouble sending a postcard. So that's often a really great first contact for outbound marketing as a postcard. Another thing you can do if people are really qualified, to your top 10 list or people that you think you really want to do business with, would be direct mail packages. And those could include your area guide and other fabulous things, maybe some snacks or something like that to make it three-dimensional mail, as we talked about in our direct mail episode, and things like that to get their attention and state your case, talk about why you're the best option and how you offer those really cool things that were on the list that they're looking for. Cool. All right. Other ways to help them find you: inbound marketing, things like AccuQuick and AirNav. You want to make sure that your listing is complete, complete and current. And a lot of people do really well with advertisements in those things. So you want to look at those options and test it. Maybe do it 1 year, see how it works, and if it works really well, buy a bigger ad the following year. There is an annual FBO rating systems that are run by Professional Pilot Magazine and Aviation International News. There might be other magazines and other local publications that have these types of rating systems or contests. You want to enter all of those and influence people to vote for you, maybe bribe people to vote for you, whatever you need to do to make sure that you get good ratings in those things, and get as many 5-star ratings as you possibly can, right?
Yep.
Okay. Another thing you can do to help people find you is search engine optimization. You want to make sure that it's not just under your company name, but also people find you when they're looking for your airport, for local destinations. Like in Utah, we've got Park City, we've got the Sundance Film Festival, we've got all kinds of things like that. Where people who are doing private travel may not think about, I need to land at Atlantic, to make this work. I just want to go to the Sundance Film Festival. How do I get there? So you really want to help them with the right keywords for your local area. Okay, so that's pretty much it for phase 1. And once again, you're spending 50% of your marketing budget on phase 1 and dividing the other 50% between phase 2 and phase 3. So phase 2 is where you've made contact with somebody, but they're not ready yet to make a decision. So in a lot of cases, this might be people who are planning a trip, or people who are working for a flight department that may be using somebody else at this point, but is considering you guys because you're better. So those are the kinds of things that you want to make sure that you're accommodating. And things that you can do when they're in the holding pattern, what we call the holding pattern, is provide them with things like tip sheets or area guides, other information that's really helpful to them. You're connecting on social media and supporting their business as well as letting them know about yours. You may be meeting them at places like conventions and trade shows, NBAA, other places that you can meet their boss, shake their hand, present your case, do all those things that you need to do. You're probably making some periodic phone calls just to check in with people. A lot of times it takes a lot more effort than you think it's going to change somebody's behavior or land a sale. So those phone calls might be offering the newsletter, offering a discounted rate on something, or a special offer for an event, other kinds of things that will give you a reason to connect with them. Printed newsletters are great for keeping in touch with people. They have a really high credibility rate, a lot more so than email newsletters. But they are expensive, so we also do email newsletters. Mm-hmm. So, all of those things can be included in a cycle that may last for days, weeks, months, or years until they are ready to make a different decision than what they are making now, and come to their senses and start using you as their preferred FBO, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. And once again, you want to consistently offer all of those things that we had talked about. Because offering them once, a one-time discount on fuel is going to get people in the door maybe for the first time. But people really like consistency, especially in private aviation. They like convenience and consistency. They do not want... The FBO should not be the most adventurous part of their trip. Right?
No, that should be at the location they're going to.
Exactly. They're often coming for business reasons or other things. They've got problems to solve. You should not be one of them. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Other things that you want to offer, of course, newsletters, thank you cards and gifts, as they're coming or as they are bringing other people, those kinds of things. You want to make sure that you're staying in touch with them and you have a reason to do that. Birthday cards, I really like this idea. If you happen to know somebody's birthday, not very many people get real physical birthday cards anymore, but I think getting something like that from an FBO will make people feel special. And a lot of times in private travel, and this happened to you, John, the people in the first class cabin that you were flying in all the time became kind of a family, right?
Well, not about a family, but very good friends.
Because you're traveling together all the time, on the same schedule. You get to know each other.
And we hit the same airplanes, the same changes every Monday morning.
Exactly. And I think with private travel, especially with places that people fly all the time, these people become friends and family. So you want to treat them like that. And, I think birthday cards are a really nice way to illustrate that relationship. They may spend more time with you than they do with their own family. You never know. Okay, phase 3, resales, recaptures, and referrals. We like to do surveys, and in this case, it may be kind of a high-end survey, which means you don't hand them a sheet of paper and a pencil. This might be more along the lines of a conversation. Call them after an experience and say, just wanted to ask you 3 questions about your experience with us. Do you have 5 minutes? And, just make sure that you give them a chance to talk. And talk about their situation and what they liked and what they didn't like and so on.
Yep.
Okay, and you want to really encourage referrals. So in that, one of those 3 questions might be, would you refer, if you had friends or colleagues that were traveling to this area, would you refer them to us? Or would you recommend us? And if the answer is yes, then follow up with the question, do you have the, could I have a name or the contact information of anybody that might be coming in? And then, we can reach out to them and provide them with our area guide and some other information so that you're more likely to get the referral, number 1. And 2, you make them feel special as a referred customer.
We can set the table for them.
You can set the table for them. Exactly. We'll leave the light on for you.
Mm-hmm. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So referrers get presents. That is, I think, that's never out of place. A lot of people feel that this is bribery or something like that. It is, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's an etiquette to presents, so that's another whole topic.
Exactly. They get thank you notes saying, thank you for referring Bob. We really appreciated having him come in, and we think he had a pretty good experience, and we'll look forward to his future business. Shoutouts on social media. This may or may not be appropriate depending on the situation. So if they are posting a lot on social media and they seem pretty comfortable with it, then by all means say, thanks very much to our friends at this company for, sending some business our way. We really appreciate it. That's can be done in a way that's appropriate. Okay, Referrer-ees Get presents. Well, they get VIP treatment, basically. So you may want to give them some kind of a gift as well, or like a fruit tray, or free catering or something like that. A one-time extra service with a note, acknowledging that they were referred. So, because you were referred by one of our best customers, we wanted to do something a little extra special for you with your first flight with us. So thank you for that, and we hope you'll continue. Mm-hmm. So that's a nice thing. This also sets up the culture and the expectation that you appreciate referrals, and it gets them thinking, oh wow, referrals get treated really well here. Who could I refer? Mm-hmm. So it sets up that culture and the expectation. And a lot of times, people, even if they really appreciate your service, they may not think to refer someone else, but this jogs their brain into thinking in the right direction, right?
You bet.
Okay, so next steps, we recommend our content marketing service. This is like the word from your sponsor, right? Our content marketing subscription, actually, what we do is we create one article a month, and that might be about your charter company. It might be an interview with a satisfied customer. It might be a press release about a new aircraft on your fleet. It might be a profile of your employees, or a review of your facilities, other kinds of things. It might be a checklist, things that people should look for. It might be an area guide for your destination, things like that. Whatever you need, but feel like either you don't want to write it yourself, you don't have time to write it yourself, or you really would like it to be professional and polished, we can take care of that for you. We do have a 3-month minimum, and that would be 3 pieces of content. Most companies can use more than that. And that starts as low as $8.79 a month, and up from that, depending on the types of services and the writers that we use and things like that. So people avoid advertising, but they seek out information. So this provides great information about your charter service, and we'd be happy to help you put that together, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so shout outs this week. Adam Sipe at the Pre-Buy Guys mentioned ABCI in their episode 9. We really appreciate meeting Adam in the last couple of weeks and talking to him a little bit about the Airplane Intel podcast. It's actually pretty cool. These guys talk about some of the ads that are showing up in Controller Magazine and other places, and the different types of aircraft. In this episode, they were talking about the Citation jets, and so some of the smaller business jets and things like that, and some of the pros and cons of those versus King Airs and other kinds of things. So it was a pretty neat episode, and they always have interesting stuff to talk about. Reminds me of Car Talk, except airplanes, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. So what's up with the insiders? We want to congratulate Casey Dixon on a new job with Cutter Aviation. I think that's pretty cool. She's doing a customer service position there, supporting the Honda Jet. And Casey is a rock star AMT, so that's not surprising, and I think we really wish her luck in her new position. She just started with us as one of our scholarship winners in January, right? Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. We really enjoyed talking with Casey, and she's a lot of fun. Ivan Boniface just had a press conference on Facebook Live, one of his first ones, and it was picked up hugely by the media in Latin America. I was really surprised. He sent us a whole sheet of media mentions right after that live press conference, and I had no idea that Latin America was so into Facebook Live and live press conferences. So that went really well, and we're really happy about that. Looking forward to the Aero Expo Panama Pacifico, April 20th and 21st. in Panama. It's the largest aviation conference between Mexico and Brazil, and really nicely centrally located to the Caribbean and the Americas and so on. So that's a great opportunity there if you're looking at expanding your network into Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
And Ivan's really, really helpful and friendly, and we'll make sure you get introduced to the right folks. So.
And connected and informed.
Absolutely. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for this week. Go sell more stuff.
America needs the business.
Absolutely. Zig Ziglar said that, and we keep saying it every week, right?
It's because it's still true.
Because it keeps being true. So subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and please do leave us a review. And also, let us know if you have questions or if there's a specific type of aviation company that you would like us to profile and do an episode for. Next week, we're going to be talking about aviation services like consulting and insurance and things like that. So last week we talked about charter companies. So there may be others that you'd like us to do, and we'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are. Have a great week.
See you later. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.
You could.